afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. And yes, viewers, we are going to start market headlines by looking at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So JCI opened at the level of 5,144.91, and then approaching the closing time in the first session, the index is on the level of 5,174.46, and then the index was showing in trend by the second session's closing time. The index was closed at the level of 5,178.27, and in short, JCI was strengthened at 1%. Next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. The leading of the dynamics of today's trading, we got Miss Industry as the leader of the strengthening trend, going up 2.83%, and mining going up 2.7%, and trade going up 1.96%, and also agriculture going up 1.95%. And as the top gainers in today's trading, here's the list of the stock for you. We got KIEF with a value that went up significantly by 11.58%. And then we got MDKA with a value that went up 4.39%. And we got UNTR with a value that went up 10.45%. And also ANTM with a value that went up significantly by 11.33%. And meantime, for the top losers for today's trading, here's the list of the stock for you. We got RCBP with a value that went down 2.13%. We got SMBR with a value that went down 4.59%. We got PSEB with a value that went down 2.07%, and NIKL with a value that went down 1.1%. And next, we are going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at the level of 14,587. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at the level of 14,578. And in summary, rupiah was strengthening at 0.23%. Despite higher revenue in number, SOE in construction sector, Adhikarya posted a significant net profit decrease in the first half of 2020.
SOE in construction sector, Adhikarya posted 5.53 trillion rupiah revenue in the first half of 2020. The number is 1.84% higher than revenue realization in the same period in 2019. Adhikarya's operating revenue was dominated by construction services with 4.48 trillion rupiah, while the other contributors came from EPC segment, property or real estate segment, and also infrastructure investment. In the first 6 months of 2020, Adhikarya recorded cost of revenue as much as 4.73 trillion rupiah, or grew by 3.5% year-on-year. In the same time, the company's operating expenses inclined by 13.15%. Higher costs and expenses pressed the company's operating profit to only 414.1 billion rupiah. As a result, the company net profit slumped down by 94.76% year-on-year to only 11.27 billion rupiah. From all sources for IDX Channel.
First half of 2020 has brought setback to metal miner company Aneka Tambang, or so-called as Antam. Company has seen its net profit went down 80% year-on-year, mostly dragged down by poor nickel and vernickel sales. First half of 2020 remarked grief for Aneka Tambang. Net profit went down 80% year-on-year to only 84.8 billion rupiah. According through its half-year financial report, the calamity happened by poor nickel and vernickel sales. But fortunately, gold sales went up and save the company from further crash. Antam's revenue fell by 36% to 9.2 trillion rupiah, while its cost fell also by nearly by the same percentage as 35.6% to 79 trillion rupiah over the same period. The drop in Antam's first half revenue was led by poor sales of nickel ore, which plunged by 94% year-on-year to only 89.3 billion rupiah, following the government's landmark ban on nickel ore export in January. From all sources, for IDX Channel. Stay tuned on market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Sebetulnya industri hilir itu lokal itu udah siap. Jadi pemerintah juga nggak perlu lagi menarik investor untuk industri hilir. Jadi pemerintah cukup menarik investor untuk industri bahan baku.
Visi dari IndiHome itu ada 3, yaitu kita untuk memanage mineral, kemudian kita juga masuk ke hilirisasi, dan yang ketiga kita mau sebagai pemain kelas dunia.
Rangkuman sentimen yang berhasil dihimpun oleh tim redaksi kami, di mana 3 emiten asal Indonesia masuk ke dalam daftar 12 saham dengan tingkat keyakinan tinggi pilihan JP Morgan.
Journal of Medias menyatakan, potensi vaksinnya untuk mencegah COVID-19 menghasilkan respon kekebalan kuat pada semua 45 pasien dalam uji coba tahap awal pada manusia. Dari dalam negeri, Presiden Joko Widodo akan membubarkan 18 lembaga di bawah pemerintahannya.
Virus corona diprediksi menekan pertumbuhan ekonomi berbagai negara dan membuat baja di pasar global alami oversupply. Krakatau Steel menyikapi ini seperti apa, Pak Silmi?
Cara mengantisipasinya memberikan competitiveness pada industri baja nasional sehingga bisa berkompetisi dengan import.
Baik.
Terus kemudian juga importnya juga kita mesti selektif. Jangan import yang hal-hal yang sudah bisa dibuat di Indonesia.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Finance Minister Sri Mulyani denied that Indonesia was experiencing a technical recession. She emphasized that the economic growth was negative for the first time in this year.
Finance Minister Sri Mulyani denied that Indonesia was experiencing a technical recession. She emphasized that the domestic economic growth was negative for the first time this year. For information, a recession is a condition in which the rate of country's economy grows negatively in 2 consecutive quarters. A number of parties say that Indonesia experienced a technical recession because the economic growth in the first quarter of 2020 contracted by about 2% from 4.97% in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 2.97%. Then economic growth contracted again by 4.19% in the second quarter of 2020 compared to the first quarter. However, according to Finance Minister Sri Mulyani, the size of a recession should revert to economic growth on an annual basis, not quarterly. She stated that based on annual economic growth, Indonesia's economy contracted the first time this year, hit minus 5.32% in the second quarter of 2020. Furthermore, she estimated that Indonesia still had a chance to escape economic recession, especially in the third and fourth quarter this year. From all sources, IDX Channel.
The magnitude of economic recession threat is increasingly stalking Indonesia. This is reinforced by the release of the latest data on Indonesia's economic growth in the second quarter, which fell into the minus zone. Regarding this, the World Bank has even provided a number of recommendations for Indonesia to recover its economy immediately. But before talking further about these recommendations, let's firstly take a look at the latest data on Indonesia's economic growth in the second quarter of 2020. Here it is. Through the graphic, we can see second quarter of 2020 GDP growth based on the spending. Here it is, we can see there is import that is contracted by 16.96%, and moving on to export, which was corrected to be minus 11.66, and then also PMTB with the value that went down 8.61%, and not to mention about government consumptions that went down 6.9%, and PRT consumptions which went down 7.76%, and also household consumptions that minus 5.51%. While for the total, if we compile it through this based on the spending, we can see second quarter growth is only minus 5.32%. And if we assess through the number represents its sharpest downturn since 1998 financial crisis in the second quarter, as the COVID-19 pandemic shut down large parts of the country. And if we take a look at the household consumptions, it may be the number is the smallest of all, but then the household spending, which makes up more than 50% of GDP, fell 5.51%, and far lower than 5.18% growth in the last period of last year. And it can be seen from the data. The contractions of 5% in household is a very, very far away. And then the household consumptions has a very significant effect on the overall GDP growth. And this is due to large portions of household consumptions in Indonesia's GDP structure, which reach more than 50%. And therefore, up to now, the government continues to issue various ways and strategy to be able to increase household consumptions. And yes, viewers, so with the release of the latest data, will Indonesia's economic prospects become even more grim than this year? The World Bank has even mentioned several estimations for Indonesia, and the information is on the next graphic. Here it is. We can see World Bank's estimations on Indonesia's in 2020. Pretty much bad. First of all, we can see the economic growth will be minus 2% up to 0%. It means there will be no growth at all. And the second one is that when we talk about poverty, World Bank's estimated Indonesia will have a poverty increase by 5 up to 8 million people. And when we talk about unemployment, it is estimated to be 2.6 up to 3.8 million loss of their jobs. And then when we talk about debt hike, it is unfortunately 6.3% of the fiscal deficit, and of course 37.4% government debt to GDP. And the World Bank senior economist, for our information, has predicted that Indonesia's economic growth will slow or not grow this year due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And the World Bank projects that Indonesia's economy will not grow in 2020 as an impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The decline occurred in all economic indicators, including increasing unemployment rate, wherein in line with the World Bank, the government also predicts that the unemployment rate could increase by 2.92 million people up to 5.23 million people. Meanwhile, in terms of poverty, the World Bank said that if Indonesia was hit by the second wave of 2020 COVID-19, poverty could increase to 8 million people. Then with the massive disbursements of government fund in economic recovery, a widening of fiscal deficit is of course unavoidable. And of course, viewers, so what are the World Bank's recommendations for Indonesia? Let's move on to the next graphic. Through the next graphic, we can see the first strategy from World Bank is about to slope the COVID-19 curve. First of all, increase the PCR test capacity to Indonesian people. And the second of all, expanding the national health system that we have. And then the third one is that trace and isolate probably it would revert to the lockdown, but whatever happens, to ensure the curve is flattened, we need to continue this behavior of staying healthy. As the number of COVID-19 infections cases in Indonesia continues to increase, which has even exceeded 100,000 cases, the World Bank calls increasing PCR test capacity to be the most important thing, where according to the World Health Organization, which is determined based on the populations, the minimum number of Indonesians' PCR tests is 270,000 per week, or 54,000 people per day. And previously, President Joko Widodo requested that a PCR test must reach 30,000 per day. But this figure is still far from the minimum standard. And therefore, the capacity of laboratories in Indonesia for PCR tests absolutely must be increased, as we know that COVID-19 problem is the starting point of Indonesia's economic downturn. And not only COVID-19 curve, the World Bank also asked Indonesia to overcome the recession curve. The points are in the next graphic. Here it is. We can see the second strategy that is provided by the World Bank is about overcoming the recession curve. First of all, World Bank stated that the improvement and expansions of social assistance targets. And the second of all, World Bank is about to support the business of sectors. And the third one is that capacity enhancement. This is inclusive of formal educations, pre-employment cards, and also labor market informations. And the last one is that close the infrastructure gap. The World Bank stated that the Indonesian government should be aggressive in distributing social assistance to the middle to lower class. This is because the level of demand will increase in Indonesia, in line with the availability of the manufacturer's good after opening of the economic activity. But however, in this case, the crucial issue is the data on the social assistance recipients. So the government's data must be able to present the actual data to ensure that the social assistance provided is on the right target and effective as well. And another thing to suppress the recession curve is that to support the business sector, where the economic recovery cannot only rely on the aspect of demand or consumption alone. Liquidity assistance to businesses affected by the pandemic is urgently needed to stress their productivity so that they are able to meet the community demand. Last but not least, there is still one other strategy recommended by the World Bank. Let's go straight to the next graphic. Here it is, the last one. The third strategy that is provided by the World Bank is about to flatten the debt curve. First of all, World Bank stated to reallocations of subsidies to infrastructure and human capital. And then the second one is that government, through the World Bank, try to extend the income tax coverage. And the third one is that by increasing revenue through excise tax. And regarding debt curve, the World Bank warned Indonesia's government to manage debt carefully, as well as being able to encourage economic growth. Debt can also backfire. An increase in debt will certainly reduce fiscal space if this is not managed properly. Macroeconomic stability in Indonesia, which is a pillar, will also be a challenge in itself and will hinder the economic recovery. So the World Bank demands Indonesia to carry out tax and excise reforms so that the tax ratio increases and the mechanism for using debt can be reduced. And yes, viewers, stay tuned to market headlines because we will be right back after this quick break.
Dukung terus koperasi dan UMKM Indonesia. Saksikan terus IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel.
Pemirsa, sudah minum kopi belum?
Kita lihat kenapa sih di Indonesia ini nggak ada kopi dengan kualitas yang bagus tapi dengan harga yang murah. Kita memastikan raw material yang kita pakai pun adalah yang kualitinya yang tinggi, yang kita sendiri approve. Kita tuh negara kelima terbesar konsumsi kopi. 87% dari populasi itu masih konsum kopi dalam sasetan.
Ada rencana untuk IPO nggak, Pak?
Saksikan IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel.
adikarya komitmennya kemanapun dan apapun yang akan dibangun oleh negara, kita akan siap mendukung. Kita juga saat ini punya proyek di ujung Banda Aceh dan juga punya proyek di Papua.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Even though economic growth contracted by 5.22%, Financial System Stability Committee stated that Indonesia's financial stability in the second quarter of 2020 was under normal condition. The chairman of Financial System Stability Committee, who is also Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati, said that the Indonesia's financial system stability was still considered as well adjusted under normal condition. The conclusions were seen from various indicators that was discussed in meeting with other Financial System Stability Committee members. But however, committee continues to increase awareness of COVID-19 economic consequences as many large economy countries have entered recession.
Beberapa indikator menunjukkan bahwa stabilitas sistem keuangan kita tetap baik meskipun kita menyadari bahwa penyebaran coronavirus 19 yang masih tinggi tentu menimbulkan kewaspadaan dan kehati-hatian di dalam melihat prospek ekonomi dan dampaknya terhadap stabilitas sistem keuangan.
Meantime, China's economy grew 3.2% in the second quarter and finally bounced back from coronavirus-related slump. Even so, China's economic downfall in the first quarter leaves mark for Indonesia economy, whereas China is one of Indonesia's largest trading partner. The world economy already faces an economic downturn. Even China, world's largest economy, had experienced heavy constructions as well in the first quarter of 2020. Minister of Finance Sri Mulyani Indrawati also confirmed that the domino effects that led Indonesia's economy suffer. She stated China's economic loss caused Indonesia contracted heavily in the first quarter and lead to Indonesia's GDP contracts deeper than expected at 5.32% in the second quarter.
Namun semuanya menunjukkan bahwa proyeksi ekonomi global mengalami koreksi yang sangat tajam. Untuk perekonomian Indonesia, kita melihat bahwa pada kuartal pertama, pertumbuhan ekonomi nasional juga sudah mulai merasakan dampak dari COVID-19 ini.
This affected Indonesia economy, whereas China is one of Indonesia's largest trading partner, and Palilah Dalia as the head of BKPM even stated if China's economy fell down by only 1%, Indonesia's economy could automatically decline by 0.3%. From Jakarta, Clara Antaliwijaya for IDX Channel. Indonesia's government will provide social assistance to 13 million workers with salaries beyond 5 million rupiah per month. The government stated that it had prepared 13 trillion rupiah funds for this assistance.
Indonesia's government will provide social assistance to 13 million workers with salaries below 5 million rupiah per month. The government stated that it had prepared 13 trillion rupiah funds for this assistance. In addition to boost people's purchasing power, the government will also provide 3 new social assistance to the poor as well as ultra, micro, and micro business. The total budget for this assistance, including for the 13 million workers, reached 70.6 trillion rupiah. For additional information, the first assistance will be productive social assistance for 12 million ultra, micro, and micro entrepreneurs. The budget reached 30 trillion rupiah. The second one, additional social assistance for the Family of Hope program, which will be given to 10 million families with a total budget of 4.6 trillion rupiah. The third one is a cash assistance amounting to 500,000 rupiah per recipient, where the total budget prepared is around 5 trillion rupiah. Regarding this, Finance Minister's Special Staff Justinus Prastowo previously said that the policy was designed to increase household consumptions and national economic growth. From all sources for IDX Channel.
Coal prices trend keeps continuing to decline. COVID-19 pandemic and high supply of coal in the global market forces Indonesia's coal price reference to fall in recent 5 months. In August 2020, Indonesia's coal price reference, or so-called as HBA, fell off 3.49% over the course of the last month due to declining coal demand. In August, Indonesia's coal price reference is at $50.34 per ton, fell 3.49% from the previous positions of July, which was at $52.16 per ton. Spokespersons of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources stated that the decrease in Indonesia's coal price reference was due to declining demand in several coal importing countries, while coal supply in global market were also increasing. The decline in global coal price is also triggered by the policies of China and India, which prioritize the use of domestic coal. From all sources for IDX Channel. And here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, the Trustworthy Economic Business and Capital Market Channel. I'm Claranta Wijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Visi dari IndiHome itu ada 3, yaitu kita untuk memanage mineral, kemudian kita juga masuk ke hilirisasi, dan yang ketiga kita mau sebagai pemain kelas dunia.